Hello and welcome to Celebrating Holidays and Heritage Months with Collection Analysis. This is our third out of four of our fall webinar series. Very exciting. Thank you for being here. And we're gonna just dive right in. So, if you're not familiar yet, the collection analysis initiatives through Teaching Books are brought to you by the State Libraries of Ohio and Missouri. This is a series of professional development, some support materials for all library staff, school, public library, um, university library, anywhere that you're working with children's and young adult titles, essentially. Providing tools to affirm that those children's and young adult titles in your displays, in your collections, in your shelves are meeting the community needs that you would like them to meet. All right, and the first thing that I'm going to drop in the chat here is just a couple of links. You can go to teachingbooks.net/Missouri registration or teachingbooks.net/Ohio registration, and that is going to get you on our email list if you're not on it already, and it's going to get you access to some of the support materials we'll be looking at today. So if you have not yet had a chance to do that, please go ahead and do so. I'm Susanna Gilbert. I'm the project coordinator from Teaching Books for all of these initiatives. I was a public librarian doing youth collection development in a past life. And so this is my very favorite thing to talk about. So I'm very happy that I get to talk about it with you. I'm also the person you can reach out to with questions at any point about using the tools, how they're working for you, anything like that. We also have our wonderful people in Ohio and Missouri. So I'll hand it off to you, Erin.
All righty. Thank you, Susanna. My name is Erin Kelsey, and I'm a library consultant for the State Library of Ohio. And the State Library of Ohio has been working with Teaching Books to provide the Ohio Collections Analysis Initiative for a couple of years now. And we're so excited to be able to provide this resource to library staff in Ohio. And we're just happy that it can be a resource to be proactive or reactive about your collections.
Awesome. Thank you. And we've got Erin's contact information there as well. So you can, of course, reach out to her with questions as well. We'll see these again at the end. And we have Katie joining us from Missouri.
Thanks, Susanna. Yeah, I'm Katie Dunn. I'm the Youth Services Coordinator with the State Library in Missouri. And like Erin, we've been offering, really excited that you were able to join us today and learn a little bit more about how you can use these tools in your own library.
Wonderful. All right, so our agenda today, we're going to do our usual very quick run through of how this works, and then we're going to dive into kind of what an analysis report might look like for a display or a list that you're creating for a particular celebration. We're going to talk about how to create new lists when planning ahead, finding and evaluating new titles, some ways to get inspiration from Teaching Books for things you might want to celebrate. And then, of course, we'll have a little time for reflections and Q&A. And we're hoping that you leave today feeling equipped to get started using these tools at your library. So why these? We hope that these are tools that you can build routines around, that this is something that can get really easily integrated into the collection work that you're already doing, or even your program planning when you're thinking about what books to share. So we've got simple, effective tools to examine your collections. It gives you the opportunity to document that collection data, resources to evaluate, promote, and bring books to life, and then just that confidence that titles meet your community needs. And as I mentioned, support and training are available, so please don't hesitate to reach out with questions. I love to get your questions. So, quick collection analysis overview. With our tools, we generally recommend starting by picking a smaller set of titles. So maybe that is a display. Maybe that's it was Indigenous Persons Day yesterday. So maybe you put together a display and you want to put that into a list and take a look at what you shared. Maybe it's books you're considering for purchase, a recommended reading list, 20 fun Halloween books. Let's see how that shakes out. If you're in schools, your classroom collections, the titles you're sharing with teachers, read alouds you have available, just kind of any set of titles that you might want to look at works really well for this. We do recommend just starting with a smaller one while you get the hang of it. It's a little easier. And then you can import those books into Teaching Books. You can do that by scanning with a barcode scanner, with your phone camera, whatever works. You can import in some different ways that we'll talk about in a minute. And then boom, you've got a report with a whole bunch of information, including some of the things that we'll see here. So, your genres, your cultural experiences, fiction, nonfiction, how many graphic novels you've got, how many award winners, all sorts of things. There they are. You've got them documented. You've got them to make decisions going forward. So that's kind of the quick version. But for the more in-depth version, we are going to hop over to Teaching Books itself. So if you are not yet familiar with Teaching Books, you might not know we have two versions of our platform. So this is our Teaching Books for schools. We also have Teaching Books for libraries, same thing, but blue, not exactly the same thing. So the two platforms, they have all of the same tools and all of the same resources, but they are arranged a little bit differently, just for kind of different audiences, right? The things that you need in the public library that your patrons need and your staff need might be a little bit different from the way that we have it organized for our school audience. The wonderful news is we're going to stay on schools today, but if you're in a public library, everything that I'm going to be talking about is going to be the exact same on both platforms. So this will translate. If you've been to other webinars in this series, you'll notice we're kind of swapping back and forth, so everybody gets a chance to see both. And that is true of the states as well. So you'll notice this says Missouri here. We were be in Ohio next month. Again, it's gonna be the same stuff. So if you're in an Ohio public library today and you're starting to panic, don't. This is all gonna be things that you can still use. But we do not want it to say welcome Missouri Collection Analysis up in the far left corner here. We want it to say welcome and my first name. So we're gonna go to the 3-line toggle menu here. And there's a link that says educator login. If you're on the library platform following along, this is going to say professional login. Same thing. I'm going to throw my Missouri email in here. If you haven't set this up yet, instead of asking for a password, it'll take you to a brief form to get that set up. Otherwise, we'll log in. And because I am registered for the Missouri Collection Analysis Initiative, I get taken directly to this landing page, which is going to give you access to the support materials that I was talking about. So we have our handbook here that is a more in-depth kind of step-by-step guide through the tools, a little bit more similar to what we're doing today. See if this takes a minute to load. It always does. Only when I'm presenting though. The rest of the time it's, Anyway, so this is a PDF of a very long slide deck with all of the steps that you need. We've got our quick start guide. Go through the steps there. Sample list analysis report you can take a look at, and of course a link to just dive in and start creating your list. You also have contact information here, so you can reach out directly to me at any time. All right, so we're going to be talking about building displays and recommended reading lists to celebrate Heritage Months, holidays, other observances, and we're going to be looking at how the Teaching Books collection analysis tools can be used to take a look at what you're sharing. Make sure that those lists or displays are balanced, engaging, and meeting the needs that you want to meet. We're also going to talk a little bit about finding inspiration, as I mentioned, for other things to celebrate. But first, we're going to take a look at an analysis report for a list I already created. So we're going to go to your custom reading lists. And here's every list I've ever created. But we're going to look at this Hispanic Heritage Month list. And you may be saying, Susanna, Hispanic Heritage Month ends tomorrow. Why are we looking at this list? True, but also it's never too early to start planning for next year. Maybe you want to take a look back at what you shared this month in a display or a list or a program, and think about how you might change it for next year. So here's our list. We've got our 35 titles with all of their resources. But what we're going to do right now is we're just going to click on this little triangle icon where it says List Analysis Report. And these analysis reports are going to be available on any list on the site. So lists you've created, lists Teaching Book staff have created for you, state award lists, anything like that is going to have those lists or that analysis report available. So if we open this up, here we go. There's all of that information that we got a hint of in the slides. You can download this as a spreadsheet. You can print it as a report. So you've got that documentation we were talking about. If you have somebody you need to share that with, or if you just want to keep it for your own files, if you want to compare what you're doing year to year, you've got the saved version of this, and then you do it again next year. But we'll go through a little bit here and see. We've got our at a glance. So we have 9 genres here, 8 cultural experiences, pretty reasonable split fiction, nonfiction there. That's a nice balance. A lot of diverse books. I would hope so for this particular list. No graphic novels, which I know would have had the kids at my library very disappointed. A lot of award winners. Publication year median 2003. So I intentionally skewed the recency on this one. I am not insinuating that all of you are out here only sharing books from the 90s for Hispanic Heritage Month. I just wanted us to have something interesting to look at. But you can even dive in here and see page count average, word count average, Lexile, a whole bunch of different stuff. So then we can scroll and see all of this a little bit more in depth in our charts and our graphs. So we've got fiction, nonfiction, Lexile. Here's that recency. So we can see there's a lot of, I think I based this off of a quite old list. So we've got a lot of early 2000s. This is like a Hispanic Heritage Month list from when I was a teenager. But so that's, something we might want to go in and adjust. But the nice thing is that we can click in and see, okay, what is that book from 2001? It's Love to Mama, Pat Mora, great book. So you can always click around and see what you've got going on there. Here's our cultural experience. Of course, we've got a lot of Latino, Latinx, Latin America, US, Canada, but we've also got a nice little mix of some other things there. If you're interested in our classification definitions, how we classify these books as different cultural experiences or different genres, there is always going to be a link to that. So please feel free to dive into that or reach out to me if you have questions about it. We've got our genre details, pretty nice mix there. Curricular area, a lot of Spanish, unsurprising, but some fun other things here. And then at the very end, we're going to have what's not included. So these are the genres and the cultural experiences that do not appear in this particular list. And maybe that's fine. Maybe, none of the information here is meant to be a judgment on what it is that you're doing, because you are the person who knows what the goal of your list is. Maybe the goal of this list for me was to make a Hispanic Heritage Month list of books that I remember reading in 9th grade. And so that's why they're all from the early 2000s. Then I would have met that goal. But if that's not the case, and you see something here that's not reflecting what you were hoping for, it gives you that opportunity to see it all laid out and to start figuring out how you might fill some gaps or make some changes. All right. So we're going to back up a little bit here. Sorry for the very long scroll. And now we're going to talk about how did I get all of these books in there in the first place? So how do we start off creating a list? We could go back to our initiative homepage here and start creating a list. We can go back to our toggle menu and go back to that Your Reading Lists page and start from here. And we're going to, of course, start with a collection name. So we are going to now shift to talking about something that is a little bit further out. So, we might be able to do some advanced planning. So we're gonna create a nice little Women's History Month list here. So we're gonna save that. You always want to save, you have to save a collection name before you can start adding titles, but I always recommend saving as you add titles as well. That's just good to do, asking for trouble otherwise. We've all closed the wrong tab at the wrong moment. And there are a whole bunch of different ways that you can add titles. So hopefully there's one that works for you depending on what you're working with tech-wise, and how many titles you're hoping to add. So the sort of simplest thing is that you can just search the quick add by book title here. We could say we want Brave Girl. It's going to pop up. We've got a few different options here. If the one I wanted was not the first one, I could also add the author's name, get it a little more specific. And then we've got our little add to reading list icon here. There we go. I'm going to save that. Now we have a title on our list. You can also add by ISBN in the same box here. So if you are using a computer with a barcode scanner attached, you can simply click into that box and scan away. So that's great if you're looking at a display, you want to really quickly get all of those books in there. We also have an ISBN search option that connects to a camera on your device. So if you're using a webcam or your phone, tablet, anything like that, you have to, of course, allow it. And it won't let me do this right now because I'm on Zoom. But you could scan that way as well if you don't have access to a barcode scanner. We'll just throw an ISBN in there to demo. It'll pop right up. We'll add that as well, clear search, and save. So those are kind of the one at a time options. We also have some bulk add options. And the really nice thing about these bulk add options is that each of them is going to have some information here about how the information needs to be formatted. So we've got our steps. We know there has to be the same number of rows in each box, etc. And that's going to be the same for paste a list of ISBNs and uploading a CSV file. CSV files can be a sticking point. Getting the formatting right can be a little bit tricky. So please don't hesitate to reach out if that's something you want to try and you're having any issues. I'm happy to play with Excel files with you.
I'm guessing at this point, Susanna, you've seen a lot of issues with spreadsheets and like ILS systems. So she's aware.
Yes, I have cleaned up spreadsheets from many different ILS systems at this point, and figured out what was going around. So that's, everybody's got to have a hobby, right? Okay, so I'm not going to sit here and add titles one by one. So we're just going to drop some ISBNs in here. We're going to fix these because they copy pasted wrong, and you'll notice you don't want to have other spaces besides the ISBNs. And then we'll import. There we go. Continue, save, and there are our 13 titles. And I'm going to take a minute and cough briefly. I apologize. All right, here we go. Doing great. Okay, so we have our titles here. Now we're going to go back to looking at the analysis report again. So we're going to go to view the list. Here we go, titles, resources. We could go to our list analysis report here, but instead this time we're going to go to our options on the left and we're going to save this list analysis report. This will become important later, so stick with me for a minute. We're going to select a list analysis report, create a new report, and import that. So here we are again on that report. We can look at our at a glance, see how this is different from the last one we looked at, see what we might want to change. So again, we've got a balance of fiction and nonfiction. A little more recent here, but still nothing newer than 2022. Some cultural experiences, some genres, curricular area, and then what's not included. So for this list, we're going to talk about, maybe we went through this and we said, okay, there are gaps that I would like to fill. I want to expand this list, and there are some things that I want to include that aren't here already. So the amazing thing about teaching books is that we have a lot of ways for you to find books to fill those gaps. So we're going to start with what's not included here. So all of these are going to link to collections on teaching books. So all of these cultural experiences, all these genres, we can click through and see the whole collection of titles that apply. So in this case, we're going to say we want to make sure we have some good women on adventures for our display. But there are 12,000 titles in the adventure collection, which is too many titles, and we know that they're not all going to fit our requirements. So we're going to use the filters on the left here. In this case, we want to go into cultural experience, and we're going to pick women and girls, because we know that's what we're aiming for here. So that gets us down pretty far. 205 is still a lot of titles to look at, so maybe we want to take a look at what year they were published. So we know we want things a little bit newer. We can grab our 2022 to 2025 past 3 years titles here. Gets us down. We can also say, maybe we want titles that have a particular resource type, or maybe we want titles that have recently won an award. And there we are down to 3. We could take off that if that's not something that is helpful for us. We could instead sort. So we could take this and say we want them sorted by number of awards that they've won. And then we could add some titles this way. We could do them one at a time. So we could grab this and add it to our titles to add Women's History Month. And then add that. We can edit, view, or we can keep going here. So keep going one at a time. We can grab our add multiple titles to reading list and pull a few off here, and we'll add those again. There we go. So starting with not included is a great way to start finding titles. We also have a tool that's built into the report that allows you to filter down a little bit more from the start. So in this case, we could pick a cultural experience we know we don't have. We could pick a genre, or we could pick a curricular area we know we don't have. We want to have some cool STEAM books for Women's History Month. And then we could pick a grade level if we want, or we can just hit search here. And the cool thing is this is going to give us STEAM books, disability books, and specifically titles that are not already on the list we created. So there are only like 11 here, not a huge deal. But if you are looking at a larger portion of your collection, that can be really useful. All right. So we're still going to filter here because we still only want our nice Women's History Month titles to be from our women and girls category here. So narrows it down a little bit. We could go down even further. Again, we could play with year published. We could do resources, or we can just add some of these. And these will go on our titles to add list again. And there we go. So another option for finding titles is that you can just go to our browse page. And I think librarians universally tend to really love the see all collections option on our browse page. It's very satisfying because you get to see all of those filters that I just talked about laid out as collections. So this is essentially kind of a summary of ways that things are categorized on teaching books. You've got your grade levels, your curricular areas, your genres, those cultural experiences, resource types, year published again, and even things like we have our phonics and phonological awareness filters now too, which we'll be talking about a little bit more next month. Teaser there. But we can click into any of these and start filtering from there as well. So we could say we want to start with the Women and Girls collection. Dive in here, almost 3,000 books. I'm going to say we want a genre that we haven't had yet, some cool mystery. We could do year published again here. We'll get some newer ones. And again, you can just kind of keep going. You could pick, if you're interested in kind of intersectionality here, you can pick a second cultural experience to filter by as well. Since we already have that Women and Girls collection, we could look at a curricular area, see if there's anything there. There's a lot you can dive in and explore here.
Wanted to add,
Yeah.
I know we're kind of building upon a list in preparation for a Heritage Month in the future, but I love the browse tool as a way to, if you're just looking at like the mystery collection and just browsing and filtering down to say, you know what, I want to make sure that I have mysteries with featuring women and girls or another cultural experience or a certain grade level and cultural experience to expand upon current your current displays and make sure that there's lots of representation in there and you're just kind of pulling from your own collection. It's not necessarily like I'm creating a list of books to buy.
Right. That's the great thing is this might just be a reminder of like, oh yeah, I totally have
Yeah.
that on the shelf and I just didn't think of it because
Right.
we can't keep all of those books in our heads all the time. But yeah, I also I love the point you made, Erin, about this is a way to find mysteries with different cultural experiences. It's a way to start with the cultural experience and say, let's make sure we have a broad mix of genres. And so you can look at that in both directions essentially, which
Yeah.
is a
I feel like
super cool way
the
to.
holidays and heritage months is like a great opportunity to highlight and make lists and have cool displays or programs that, and then have book lists related to programs. But it can also, this tool is really great for just making sure you're celebrating those cultural representation or the cultural experiences all year round, not just during February or whatever month, whatever
Yeah,
cultural
absolutely.
experience. Yeah.
You're making your mystery display, as you said, you can do all of this in reverse too and see what you've got. So it's fun. I feel like
It's
if
a
you're
really
in a role where you're doing this, you're probably somebody who could go down the rabbit hole with this
it's a
really
really cool
easily.
way, a great way to nerd out if you want
Yeah,
to. And I think it's a cool reader's advisory tool as well.
absolutely. All right, let's add a couple of these. Grab some off the top here, and these will go on our titles to add. And we're going to go view this now. So we're going to see what we've got. So we just added 12 books to this list. And maybe these are books, as we mentioned, that you already have on your shelves and you're just thinking about adding to this particular list or display. Maybe they are books that you're thinking about purchasing and you want to know a little bit more about them before you decide. You just kind of threw them on there as a maybe, and now you want to dive in a little bit and learn more. So I'm just going to highlight kind of one resource that you can use to find out more today. And that is our book resumes. So you can open up any title on Teaching Books and you'll see a link up in the top here in the highlighted links that says book resume. And this is going to be a whole bunch of, I loved this book too. Oh, so good. Did you read the third one yet? I haven't, my mom just read it. I'm like 35th on the holds list. I'm very jealous that she got it already. Anyway, if you're looking for more information about the book, we have these resumes that are essentially just documentation of things that might be useful to know. So we've got grade bands pulled from a variety of sources. These are those teaching books tags that we were just looking at. So our cultural experiences and genres, year published. We've got subject headings from Library of Congress and BISAC. We've got full text professional reviews. So in this case, we've got 8 of them, 4 are starred. You've got them all in one place. So you don't have to, have 4 different physical magazines or try to remember 8 different logins to review sources. And you can just go through and read all of these. So that's a really nice option if you're considering books, or if you want to share this out with anybody who's interested. Sorry,
I was going to
Erin, go
share.
ahead.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, if you share, there's a share button, and if you share it, so say you shared it with a patron, or if you're a school setting with a parent, they can see that book resume, but they don't necessarily need to have a full, have an account. I have a colleague, a public librarian, who they work with the schools quite a bit with school visits, and the school, just due to the climate that we're in right now, the school was asking them to provide a list of the books they were going to book talk in advance and provide additional information. And these book resumes have been really helpful because she can just plug in a link and send the information that the school wants. And it's not taking up a ton of time.
Yeah, right. Because again, it's all in one place. It's a whole bunch of stuff. In addition to the reviews, you've got all of the book awards and distinctions for a title. You've got all of the state and provincial recommended reading lists it was on. So you could go through and see, where this has been highlighted. You can preview the digital book if you are on Libby Library and you want to take a look at it on Overdrive Marketplace. Or if you just want to take a look at an ebook or audio sample, that's an option as well. So lots of cool ways to introduce a book or find more information, or again, documentation to share with whoever needs that documentation. This can be shared digitally. You can print the full thing. You can print a 1-page summary that has a QR code leading to the full thing. There's a whole bunch of options. All right, but if we have decided that we do want to add all 12 of these, we are going to come back to the part where I saved the list analysis report instead of just clicking on our list analysis report link. So again, we're going to go to Save List Analysis Report. And then this time, instead of importing it to a new report, we're going to pick that Women's History Month list that we started with. And we'll import that. And now we have Women's History Month version 2. So this is going to be those 2 lists combined. And now we can take a look and say, okay, what changed by just adding those titles? You haven't had to spend any money. You haven't had to spend any time hunting these down. You can just look and say, if I did this, what difference would it make? Or you can say, I did make these changes and I want documentation of the difference that that made. So we can see here, now we've got 15 genres, 12 cultural experiences, a little bit more fiction, but this is still relatively balanced there. Publication year median went up a whole lot. And now we've got a graphic novel. That's nice. But again, we can go in and see all of these. See, we've got a whole lot more from the last 3 years than we did before. We've got more cultural experiences included here. A whole bunch more genres. Look at that. Holy cow. That's a lot of genres. Got a good mix there. A few more curricular area details. And then here are not included lists have gotten shorter. And again, it's not a checklist. We're not saying you got to go through and make sure you have all of them. I would love to see what we have in the women and girls category for all of our concept books, honestly, but we're not going to do that right now. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that next month, actually. We'll think about doing that in November. Talking about our little people and their concept books. Anyway, so you might want to go in and say, yeah, we do want to make sure we have some horror, but you might not want to make sure you have every single category. It's up to you. You know the audience that you're creating this for, and you know the goal that you have in mind personally for what's here. But now you have the information to back up the choices you've made, to share that with whoever it needs to be shared with, or just for your own interest. I think it's all very interesting. So I'm a little biased. Okay, so we've talked about how to take a look at these analysis reports. We've talked about how to get your books into a list to do that. But what about finding holiday titles in general, or finding holidays, things that you might want to highlight and celebrate. So there's a few different resources that I want to point you towards pretty quickly here. One of them is if we go back to browse and we go back to our CL collections and we take a look at genre, you may or may not have noticed as I was skimming through genres that we do actually have a holiday collection. So this is very fun in that it's 3,000 some books about holidays, which, you know, who wouldn't enjoy that? Um, its downfall, and I don't like to admit to this, of course, but its downfall is that it does not let you filter by specific holiday. I wish that it did. I wish you could go in and say, I just want my Hanukkah books. But at this point, it is everything all together. But it's fun, you know, it's a fun way to dive in and see what's out there. You know, you could play with some of these filters still and narrow down if you're looking for something specific. So that's an option that's out there. We also have our literary calendar. You can find this linked in a few places, but generally, if you're looking for something on teaching books and you're having trouble figuring out where it's linked, our search feature does work very, very well. So it is a great starting point to just search for it. I think if you just search calendar, it'll pop up. So if you don't remember what it's called, you'll still be able to find it under our featured here. And this is a whole bunch of different holidays and celebrations and author and illustrator birthdays, and just so many things that you might want to create displays for, plan story times around. If you're in charge of your social media and you're just always looking for more things to share, this can be a great starting point too. So it's going to have things like, of course, we know it was Banned Books Week last week. That's going to be on here. We've got Hispanic Heritage Month, of course, is just wrapping up here. But there's also going to be things like, okay, on the 29th, it's National Cat Day. And it's going to give you a cat book. And now you know. Who knew? Maybe you want to do, excuse me, we'll go back here, a cat story time or a cat display or a Instagram post with a whole bunch of cool cat books that you have, highlighting those for patrons. Maybe you want to make a list of cat books and then do a list analysis on it. You know, whatever you're hoping to do. We've got you know, of course, as I said, those kind of longer celebrations. We've got, you know, Dyslexia Awareness Month. We've got birthdays. We can dive in and say, who's good this month? Maybe we want to do something for one of these. We want to do a fun Ed Emberley program on his birthday, get out the thumb art. You know, there's just kind of a wide variety. You know, have a all David Shannon story time on his birthday. Have a home fire drill on a home fire drill day. I don't know where we get some of these, to be honest with you, but they're all very fun. So it's fun to explore. But one of the nice things here is it's also great, again, for finding those points of inspiration that you might not have known about. So if you're looking at this, thinking ahead, if this were earlier in October, if we were looking at next month, you could say, okay, we've got Diwali coming up. That's something where I would like to put together a display or a reading list for my patrons. I think that'd be really cool. We've got one book here that is linked. We can say, ooh, here's a fun one. But if you're looking for more, you can also search for your holiday or celebration or whatever it is, just in the search box and see what comes up. So in this case, we've got some book results, but we also have a list. So you can click in here and see that this is a Reading Rockets list with 11 different books. And so this can be a great starting point too, to kind of dive in and say, you know, where are these books that might fit what I'm looking for, so that we can create more engaging and broad-ranging displays to meet our community's needs. All right. Anything else that we want to share about any of that, Erin and Katie? Things that we talked about or things that have come to you?
Really just going back to the share feature and being able to, when you create lists, especially if you're working with another colleague in your library, to think about books that you want to add to your collection and being able to share that list back and forth. And then something that I really liked is for each title that you have on your list, I think there's like a note option under them too. So you could add a note like, Katie wanted to add this book for whatever reason, like this, I think this is a good addition. And then my colleague could write something back on a different book. So you have some data about why you might have chosen that book for that list or that purchase.
Absolutely. So yes, as Katie mentioned, you can always go in and add a note on the edit page, or you can add a note right here and save that. You can click and edit it at any time. So yeah, that's a great option. I love what you said about sharing these with colleagues too. So, we've got our share tools. You can just grab that link. You could put it on a bookmark or a flyer with a QR code and add this to a display as a supplemental, like here's some Hispanic Heritage Month books that we had on the shelf, and here's a list of some more that you might want to put on hold or, check back for. But something I always think about too is sharing within your department or within your library. In my role, I was often kind of spearheading this sort of thing, but I wasn't in the building every day. So being able to say, here's a huge list of great Hispanic Heritage Month books. I'm going to send this to you. If you need to refill this display, here's a starting point. Here's a list that you can start searching for in the catalog if you're looking for something that fills that need. So I think there's a lot of ways to make that useful there. Erin, did you have anything else?
I was just going to ask, if you download a list to a spreadsheet, do the
Yes.
notes, there's a spot for the notes too. So that would translate if you're like downloading
Absolutely.
it for other data collection purposes, those notes would carry through.
Yeah, so if you download the list details here, we'll do that quick. And we'll see which of my screens it opens on. You do not need to see how many Excel files I have open right now. All right, there's the one you do want to see. So you can download this as a spreadsheet with all of the information here. It's going to have your titles, your author, illustrator, and the ISBNs. So in this case, that's a great option. If this is a list where you're thinking, these are some titles I want to buy, it can be great to have that ISBN information to put into. Wow, my example here is always Baker and Taylor. Okay, we're gonna have to work on that. Follett, wherever you're buying your books, you can put those in and find them pretty easily. But yes, it also is going to have your teaching books information. And hey, there's that note that I added. So again, yeah, we'll have a whole column with all of that information, genres, curricula or area, cultural experiences, awards, all of this information that we just saw laid out in spreadsheet form. And then if we go all the way over, we get links to the book resumes for all of these titles. So this is a really, really nice documentation option too. Download this, have it on hand again for your own work or for sharing it with somebody that you need to share it with. All right. Very good. We are going to hop back to my slides for a second here. This is just a little chart for all our visual learners out there talking about kind of how this is. We always intend this to be an ongoing part of your collection routines, right? This is something that we hope can really integrate in when you are buying new books, when you're creating displays, when you're planning programs, whatever that is in your role. This isn't intended to be kind of a one and done. You make a list and say, huh, that's interesting, and move on. This is something that we hope is easy enough that it can become part of that flow for you. All right, and then we have one more webinar in this series. This went really fast this fall. All right, but we have one more coming up in November, so I hope you will join us for analyzing picture books to support early literacy. We're gonna talk about some of the stuff we have available for our really early readers, and how you can find that, how you can analyze those collections. So I think that'll be really fun. I hope you can join us. Again, if you have any questions at any time, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you have questions in Ohio, you can reach out to Erin and I together. That's always the safest bet in case it's a question that one or the other of us is more primed to answer. So you can just start with that. Generally, Erin's going to be the person you want to go to for kind of state-related stuff, and I'm going to be the person that you want to go to when your spreadsheet breaks. But you can always email both. And then if you're in Missouri, of course, same deal. Please do reach out to Katie and I. We really love to hear about how you're using the tools, what you're thinking about, and of course, want to be there to support you if you run into any roadblocks. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you are pumped to go out and celebrate whatever it is that you're celebrating with a whole lot of books.